Hello, today is Friday, August 19th, 2016, and I am your host, Sue Brown, and welcome to info2rail, your freight train to modern media. How y'all doing today? Well, I want to welcome you to our show and tell you it's been a long time since I've done an interview, and I want to apologize to my listeners for that. Some private things came up that I had to deal with, but everything's dealt with now and under control, and I am back with you guys to bring you some more amazing interviews with amazing people. We are very fortunate today to have psychotherapist Dr. Laurie Nadel with us. First, we're going to take a little glimpse into the missing persons files. We have, first off, a missing South Carolina girl. Alexia Jade Byington, Byington, age 13, is last seen in Grover, South Carolina on July 30th, 2016. She is 5 foot tall, weighs 105 pounds, has hazel eyes and brown hair, possibly dyed another color. Alexia may be in the company of a male. She is believed to be in the Columbus, South Carolina area. Anyone with any information on her location, please call the Georgetown Police Department at 843-527-6763 or call your local 911. The second one we have for you is a missing Kentucky teen. Emily Nacke, N-A-C-K-E, age 17, was last seen in Louisville, Kentucky, and Okolona area of South Park Road on July 22nd, 2016. She is 5'9", she weighs 130 pounds, has blue eyes, shoulder-length blonde hair, with a hot pink strip on the left side of her head and several tattoos on her arm, which are shown in the picture, including the word blind melon on it. Nacke was last seen with her black JanSport backpack with N-A-C-K-E, Nacke, written in white paint on it. Anyone with any information on her location, please call the Louisville Metro Police Department at 502-574-7111 or 502-574-7120 or call your local 911. As I cannot express to you guys enough, it is very important that we do our part in looking for these missing people. I know how life, can be so busy and we really don't have time to even think sometimes, but this is so important as, these people are somebody's children or somebody's mother and father or somebody's aunt or uncle. And what if it was your relative or your friend? You would want help to find them. So please, let's band together as a whole and bring these people home. We're going to take a short break now, and when we return, we will have Dr. Laurie Nadel with us. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back with Dr. Laurie Nadel. Dr. Laurie Nadel specializes in helping people who are struggling with fears that prevent them from moving forward. Whether fear presents as performance anxiety that makes it impossible to speak in public or function in daily settings, a debilitating phobia, or flashbacks to traumatic, life-shattering events, Dr. Nadel's practice is focused on providing support, insight, and effective interventions that give the patient strategies and tools to overcome those fears relatively quickly so that they can be replaced by calm, confidence, and a sense of well-being. Her mission is to offer short-term, goal-oriented, patient-focused therapy with personal attention and quality care. For those who have tried traditional psychotherapy, Dr. Nadel offers a new, caring approach to resolving internal conflicts and issues that have not responded well to previous treatments. A therapeutic relationship needs to be a safe place to express concerns that are so deeply held that the individual may even have difficulty using verbal descriptions to describe his or her situation. The unconscious mind reveals itself through subtle muscle movements, pulses, and changes in breathing. A specialist in the physiology of nonverbal communication, Dr. Nadel knows how to sit with the patient's unconscious or subconscious mind in a reassuring way to create a profound rapport that facilitates an unburdening process. In private practice since 1991, she works collaboratively with psychiatrists, MDs, and psychologists to create a supportive team for each patient. She accepts referrals from MDs, nurse practitioners, psychiatrists, psychologists, and attorneys who are seeking professional help for their patients and clients. Dr. Nadel has been an expert witness in a PTSD case in the U.S. Disctrict Court for the Southern District of New York. Hello, Laurie, and welcome to info2rail, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show.
Can you start out by telling our listeners who you are and what you do and how you got into what you do?
Well, it's a long story, but I'm the author of a book that's been a 4-time bestseller about intuition as a natural ability that we all have. It was really the first book that reported on the government's secret psychic espionage program called the Remote Viewing Program. It was called Stargate at the time. And it was the first book to look at how intuition can be developed like artistic ability or musical ability or linguistic ability. Looks at intuition as an intelligence. And the book was on Oprah twice. I've been on Coast to Coast a number of times. As I said, it's been a bestseller 4 times. It's just come out in a brand new audiobook, which is available on Audible. I think you'll have a link for your listeners because there are a lot of free bonus gifts for anybody who either signs up for an Audible subscription, in which case you can get the book for free, or you can buy the book directly from Audible on my Amazon page. So so I'm known in the field as the author of the classic kind of reference book on intuition, which is called Sixth Sense, Unlocking Your Ultimate Mind Power. Now, I was a journalist for the first 20-something years of my career, and then after a series of illnesses, got laid off from the network while I was out on disability. I changed careers, and as a result of writing Sixth Sense, I went back to school and I got 2 doctorates. I earned a doctorate in cognitive psychology and a second doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy. And I've been in private practice now since 1991 and do a lot of work with people who are recovering from catastrophic events like September 11th or Hurricane Sandy. And that's the basis of my practice, is working with people who've been traumatized. But I also do a lot of work with people who want to tap into their own intuition or want to find out how to program their dreams. So that is another big theme in the work that I do with people one-on-one. So that's kind of the shorter version of a very long story.
Can you tell us about our sixth sense? Do we all have that?
Well, everyone has sixth sense. Carl Jung identified, one of the fathers of psychology. One of the reasons he broke from Sigmund Freud is because he believed that within our subconscious, or what he called the unconscious mind, Freud believed that the subconscious was a reservoir of repressed dark emotions like anger and fear and jealousy and hatred. And Jung believed that the unconscious mind was also the center of our sixth sense, our spirituality, that our unconscious minds are all connected in a universal, archetypal kind of a reservoir, if you will, called the collective unconscious. And it is through the collective unconscious that we access different levels of consciousness, transpersonal kinds of experiences. Like, for example, you can be a Catholic and suddenly you can have a dream in which the Buddha appears to you or a Hindu god appears to you, and that would be considered a transpersonal experience. In other words, it's coming from a higher realm, but it's not coming from your individual background or your grandparents or your biological ancestors. So the answer is that, yes, we all have a sixth sense, and some people use it more naturally and easily, like you write your name with your favorite hand. So if anybody's listening and you'd like to do this very quick exercise, if you can grab a pencil or a pen, write your name with your non-dominant hand. That's the hand that you normally do not use. And notice what it feels like. It usually feels a little awkward. It takes more time. The result is kind of childish. And in terms of intuition, what that means is that for some people, using their intuition is like writing their name with their other hand. It's something that they're not really comfortable with. It doesn't feel natural. What feels more natural is what we call the sensing function. And the sensing function is that part of the brain, or it's actually the brain system, that looks at things in steps and structure and procedure, looks at the past. It asks how much is it going to cost, how much time do we have. It likes structure and organization and tradition, and needs to know what's expected during times of change. The sixth sense, as Carl Jung put it, the intuitive function sees around the corner. So when you're more comfortable with your sixth sense, and it's kind of like writing with your favorite hand, you tend to automatically go into the future, and you see a possibility, or you see a vision of something that hasn't happened yet. And if you're intuitive, you'll actually say, how do I get from here to there? And then you'll start designing your strategy or building the steps. You'll think your way from the present to the future. Intuitive people tend to be more visual, and they tend to be more future-oriented. So everybody has it, but for some people it's just not developed, and they're wary of it.
Is that what you would consider that a psychic would have, or use, a little bit more sharply than somebody who, like a clairvoyant psychic who can kind of see into your future a bit? Would that be what they're using as their sixth sense?
Well, it's the ability to see around the corner. I personally don't believe that any of us can really see the future. And I've studied with shamans, and I've studied with remote viewers, and I've studied with psychics, and I've had literally thousands of psychics read for me since the first edition of the book came out. I don't think anybody can accurately read the future. But what a psychic can do, they can tap into your unconscious mind. And very often what they can do is they can tell you things with great accuracy that happened to you when you were a child, things that maybe nobody else knows about. They can do that with great accuracy, and they can also read your emotions. They can read your desires. They can read your fears, and there is some kind of an energy transference that takes place. So a lot of psychics will pick up images, and sometimes those images are coming from another realm. They may be coming from spirits. They may be coming from the collective unconscious. They may be coming from your unconscious mind. And so they have that kind of a more finely tuned ability to allow that and to be able to discern what it is they're picking up. But in terms of reading the future, when I was just getting into this, I made a couple of business decisions that changed the course of my life based on what a psychic told me. And I always tell people, don't make major life decisions based on what a psychic tells you. That's all I can say. Not a good idea.
For someone who has actually left their body and had an out-of-body experience, do you believe that is possible? I've had one myself, and I can't...
I've had several. They definitely exist. And intuitive, if you tend to be more an intuitive person, then you believe that you're a soul in a body. You inhabit a body. And a sensing person believes that they are their body. So if you have an out-of-body experience, then what the shamans refer to as your energy body, or the mystics refer to as your etheric body, will leave the physical shell, or the cells of you'll experience yourself as outside your physical form. And there's been a lot of, it's controversial in the scientific community because they believe it's some kind of a neurochemical kind of glitch that happens in the brain, but it is very real.
I had an experience, it was kind of the first real death I ever had to face as a child. I was actually a teenager, and my grandfather passed. And I was sleeping on my couch at home, and all of a sudden I was in his living room watching the whole act unfold. And then my father was standing above me on the couch at home telling me my grandfather had just had a heart attack. And I said, no, he didn't. The main artery to his heart clogged and he died. You know, I watched it. So to me, I could never understand how that happened to me.
Well, I don't think that anybody really understands, how it happens. We just know that it does happen. But, people, and there are all kinds of training programs. I mean, there are astral projection programs. I personally have never found any of them to be particularly effective. But there's one that a friend of mine swears by, and he says that if you can train your mind to become aware when you're dreaming. So that's called the lucid dream state. And if you can get to that point where you wake up in a dream and realize that you're in a dream, then if you give yourself the command to fall backwards, your energy body will leave your physical body while you're sleeping, and you'll be in a state of pure energy. So that is, I did try it once, and I was able to exit my physical body while I was sleeping, but it felt so weird, it felt so weightless that I zoomed right back into my sleeping self.
I've experienced that as well, but I felt like I couldn't wake up. You couldn't turn on any lights. I mean, nothing worked. I kept trying to turn lights on and nothing worked. And I looked down and saw my body laying there, and I said, I don't think I belong up here. I think I belong down there. So I panicked as well.
And then what happened? Did you get back into your body? I guess you did, because you're here.
I did, but I felt like I had to throw myself on the floor just to wake myself up. It scared me. I did not like that.
No, I know. That's definitely I would say traumatic experience, but definitely kind of a shocking and upsetting experience. It would be for me. For
our sixth sense, is this, I mean, I know everybody has it, but when we're born, some people are very artistic already and things come natural to them. Does that mean that their sixth sense is already pretty much open for them in those certain areas?
Well, as I said, just like some people are born with natural gift for languages or math or athletic ability. Some people are born with a kind of a more, I would say, a more naturally present, if you will, or more fully functioning intuitive awareness. And just like some people are klutzes when it comes to movement or mechanics. Some people are kind of klutzy when it comes to their intuition. Or it just doesn't, like I said, it just doesn't feel right. They don't trust it. They don't know how to recognize it. When I teach intuition seminars, and I was on the corporate circuit for 10 years teaching intuition as part of a whole brain thinking approach to leadership and problem solving and team building. One of the things that people would find is that they were very awkward about it. They didn't know where it was coming from. They didn't know how to recognize it when it did speak to them or show itself to them. So as I say, that there are 3 steps that you need to develop your intuition. One is to get a definition, a personal definition for yourself, so that you know what it is when it speaks to you, so that you can identify it. So you have to define it, then you have to find your signal. For some people it's a visual, for some people it's an inner voice, for some people it's a gut feeling, like something that you feel in your body, or it's an emotion. And then you have to kind of develop a process of, when it happens, to keep a log and keep a journal so that when it happens again, you'll be able to identify it, you'll be able to trust it. And so it's define, identify, and trust are the 3 steps that I think are very important. Because people who don't allow their intuition or don't trust their intuition, they don't really know what it is. They don't really know how to get to it. They don't really. Usually, people have had an experience where they remember it because they had a feeling that they shouldn't trust somebody, but then logically they said it didn't make any sense, and so they ignored it, and then everything went south. So they're usually experiences that people have where they go, oh, that time that I met that person and my inner voice said, uh-oh, don't trust him or don't trust her, and you went ahead anyway. And then you realize, oh, you should have paid attention to that sound or that signal or that feeling. That's usually how most people back into their intuition and respecting that, that moment, which I call it sometimes the uh-oh moment, that moment is real. It's giving you real intel. It's giving you real information. And so you have to learn to recognize it when it comes back so that next time you won't make the same mistake.
I know that you are a psychotherapist and you give like business coaches and stuff. How would you help a business coach? How would you help coach someone in business to accelerate at what they're doing?
Well, could you give me a more specific example?
If someone had come to you and they had asked you how they could, what they could do to better themselves to be a better business person, what would you coach them? I mean, how would you coach them to be a better person or better in their business?
Well, the first thing that I like to do is kind of zero in on what is the area where they feel that they're stuck, or where they're being held back. Like what is the area in your business life which, if it were working the way you wanted it to work, everything else would kind of align itself and fall into place. In other words, where is it that you don't like to do cold calls? Is it you don't like to? Is it a performance anxiety thing? You're not comfortable giving presentations or speeches? Is it that you have time management issues? Is it that you don't have confidence in yourself? I mean, very often the first piece of really becoming successful is having confidence in your ability to learn what you need to learn in terms of business skills or technical skills, so that you can grow your business or you can build a foundation. So we have to kind of zoom in on, what if you could change one thing about your beliefs, your behavior, or your emotions, because those are the things that we have control over. What would you want to key in on? And then I would do a series of exercises to remove limiting beliefs or to release any fears and replace those fears with confidence, and to give the person certain tools that they could use that are like quick release tools to lower stress levels and to replace the stress with confidence and calm in any situation. I might teach them self-hypnosis or use the emotional freedom technique, and I've also just finished a clinical course in homeopathy. So sometimes we add homeopathic medicine for anxiety or to deliver confidence in performance situations. So it's kind of a combination, but it's really helping the person to identify, what are the areas that I'd like to improve.
I have a lot of listeners that struggle with the fact that they really, even at an adult age, they really don't know what they want to do as a business career, and they really don't, they just cannot figure out where they fit into, society, what their calling is, or, what they really want to do in their lives. And I hear that, a lot of my listeners and stuff have talked, about this throughout, the times that I've chatted with them. And that's where they struggle a lot, is trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And I guess that's, something that I wondered how you would address that.
Well, the first thing that I say, and people don't like to hear this, but I've spent many years studying Buddhism and practicing to the best of my limited ability, Buddhist teachings, or called the Dharma, which is how you put the principles in action. And Buddha said that the source of suffering, the source of all human suffering, is wanting. And when we want something, we get it. We want something else. Or be careful what you wish for. You get what you want, and then it's not what it was cracked up to be. So, what I tell people who say I don't know what I want is just let's get the word want off the table, and let's focus on what you need, and ask yourself, what do I need, and what does my deepest self need? So when we're talking about career or business, sometimes people think that it's all about making money, that it's, they just want to make X amount of income. So I'll ask people, so if you were offered a job where in 3 years you would be making $500,000 a year and you'd be promoted, you'd have all these perks, but you can't stand the office, you don't respect the business model, you would hate your boss, you would hate the atmosphere, and you wouldn't respect the people you worked for, the company you worked for, but in the end of 3 years you're going to cash out. Would you be able to do it? People who are more intuitive in terms of their personality, model, according to the Myers-Briggs, for example, which is the Jungian personality model that actually shows you where intuition functions in your personality. People who are more intuitive, you could not give them enough money to make them walk into a place that they hated, because they can't put blinders on, and they can't just say, I'm going to do something, for a business I don't respect, because in 3 years I'm going to have X amount of money, because work has to deliver more than money. Your deeper needs with regard to work sometimes include autonomy. For example, you need autonomy over your schedule. You need to have control over your time, or you need flexibility, or you need to telecommute, or you want to travel, or you want to work someplace where you're going to be working on a team. You need a collaborative environment. You need social support. So I have people look at, what do you need work to give you? Your relationship with work has to fulfill more than just giving you money. Because if it's just about money, go train to be a realtor or a stockbroker or a currency trader or a day trader and just make it all about money. But people who are really looking for something that's going to connect and allow them to express the core of who they are, they're usually looking for work to deliver something that's going to fulfill a need that they haven't yet identified. So we need to work to identify what is it that you need work to give you, and let's stop talking about what you want, because you get what you want, you're just going to want something else, or it's not going to be what you really wanted, or somebody else is going to have more and you're going to want more of what they have. So let's try to stay away from the word want, and let's zero in on your needs and your deeper needs.
I can definitely relate to that, because I had that problem for a lot of years. I could go to work in a retail store and make money and everything else, but it wasn't fulfilling me as a human being of what I needed inside. So for me, I kept trying to figure out what I could do to help people. That is something that is a passion of mine, is to help anybody that I can help in any way I can help them, and and socialization and kind of bringing realization out to other people, which is what landed me doing what I'm doing. But I really can relate with that. I know that you also do homeopathy for anxiety and insomnia and phobias.
Right.
Right. How does that work when somebody is high in anxiety? Is there's a way that you can actually fix that so that they don't have to go through that anxiety life any longer?
Well, there are a number of approaches to anxiety that are non-pharmacological because anxiety medications are dangerous, they're addictive. If you stop taking Xanax too quickly, you can have seizures. People end up in rehab. And so the approach that there are several approaches, but one of the things that is different about homeopathy is that it targets what the triggers are. So, for example, if you have panic attacks, there's a specific, homeopathic medicine or remedy that you would use. If you have a fear of death, and you're a very meticulous person, and whenever you get sick, you think that, oh my God, if I'm sick, I'm going to die. Feeling of loss of control, that would be a different anxiety medicine. If you get performance anxiety and you kind of blank out or get stage fright, or you have anxiety before your exams, then that's a different anxiety medicine. If you have anxiety before a storm comes in, I lost my home in Hurricane Sandy, and so sometimes when there's a storm coming in, and you get the warnings, be prepared to evacuate, and that can generate anxiety. There's a specific anxiety medicine for that as well. People who get anxious at the sound of the wind, or people who get anxious around the water, every one of those triggers has a different homeopathic medicine. Now, homeopathy was the main form of medicine in this country, as it has been in Europe for centuries. It was started in the early 1800s by Dr. Hahnemann in Germany. And what happened in about the 1890s here was that the big pharmaceutical industry, even then, got very disturbed that people could take a little vial of a natural substance that at the time might have cost 60 cents. Now a tube of boron homeopathic medicine costs maybe $7 in the health food store. So you're not talking about something that costs, $300 a month for the rest of your life. You're supposed to take it until, usually with homeopathy, you will begin to see results very quickly. And with these anxiety medicines, if it's the right medicine, it will work right away, and it will alleviate your symptoms. So the pharmaceutical industry decided to discredit the homeopathic medicines to the American Medical Association. And they said that homeopathy had no medical basis, had no scientific basis, and so the AMA discredited it. And in the last 10 or 15 years, thousands of doctors who are MDs in the U.S. and Canada who are licensed, who are studying homeopathy because they realize that a lot of these drugs are dangerous. They have long-term effects. The Fda testing for a new drug only requires 2 years of testing. It doesn't get tested with interactions with other medications. So if you have somebody who's older who's taking diabetes medication, blood pressure medication, asthma medication, you take it for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, you're going to get interactions that are going to affect other areas of your body. It could affect your liver, could affect your kidneys, could affect your heart, could cause, thrombosis, could cause chronic headaches, and it's because of the interactions of the medications. So more and more doctors are kind of learning about how to incorporate homeopathic prescribing and dispensing as part of their practices, because patients are also more educated. So you still have this kind of propaganda war where Big Pharma is always continually taking homeopathic companies like Boron to court to try to claim that they're making false claims in their advertising, and now the homeopathic companies are winning the lawsuits because the judges are ruling in their favor because they're not lying. Now, because homeopathic medications are diluted, so for example, you have something like Ignatia, which is an anxiety medication. I think it's St. Ignatius bean is what it is in its pure form. It gets diluted like 10,000 times, 30,000 times, so that there's only like a very slight trace, a very slight mineral trace of whatever the substance is. And it actually works on the digital signal. Like every cell in your body has an electromagnetic transmitter and a receiver. So your cells communicate all the time because they give off electromagnetic signals and they receive electromagnetic signals. And so the homeopathic medicines are really working with those electromagnetic signals that and how affect how the cells behave and how the cells communicate with each other. They're not changing the chemistry of the molecules within your body in the same way that a pharmaceutical will do. You know, if you take aspirin, or you take insulin, or you take something, a Tylenol for your heart, that's actually changing the chemical structure. But what homeopathy does, which is more subtle, but it can be much more beneficial and it's safer, and it can be actually longer lasting in fixing a problem, is it works on the digital information that the cells transmit. And they now, with electron spectroscopes, the scientists have been able to actually see how the homeopathic medicines are actually engaging and working on a cellular level. So we now have more scientific proof that homeopathic medicine is scientifically valid and reliable, as well as being safe and natural and effective.
Well, I know that anxiety is a very, very big issue for a lot of people, especially a lot of my listeners that I chat with have a big problem with anxiety, as I did when I was younger, and I have two daughters that do as well. And you're definitely right about the over-the-counter medications causing a lot of side effects and a lot of problems.
Doctors don't like to prescribe them. I mean, I coordinate with MDs and psychiatrists. Also, when women are pregnant or nursing and they're having postpartum depression or they're having mood swings, there are homeopathic medicines that are specifically helpful and will not interfere at all, and they're not dangerous at all for pregnant women or nursing mothers. So, I mean, it's really opened up a whole world for me in what I'm able to offer people who are struggling with anxiety. And anxiety, I think technically they say it's like 13% of the population, I think, in the U.S., but I think it's much greater because I'm working on a book right now about how you can prepare mentally and emotionally for, say, a natural catastrophe or a human, and what they call an intentional or man-made disaster, like a terrorist attack, for example, or an environmental catastrophe like an oil spill or radiation. As we know, these things are that the frequency of sudden, random, violent events are surging, and they're going to continue to increase, unfortunately, because we're in a very turbulent cycle. And so I think that although there's really no official research on it, from what I see and hear, as I go around the country and I listen to people, I see that there is a growing need for relief and for information and for ideas and insight and practical tools for how to manage and relieve and even overcome anxiety. Because every time you get up in the morning and you turn on your cell phone, you turn on your tablet, the first thing you see is going to flash, somewhere on your opening screen, the news of the day. And the first images that you're likely to see are people whose lives have been shattered by some kind of catastrophic event. So you're constantly, the unconscious mind is constantly taking in images of people who've been traumatized. And so you're living in a state of vicarious traumatization. I mean, you are, I am, we all are, millions of us are, because we're exposed to these images all the time. And that kind of increases our collective anxiety. And we need to find ways of recognizing that, number one, and certain kind of very quick kind of rescue remedy tools that you can use to be able to alleviate that anxiety, and also to be able to realize that, we're going to need to learn how to become more compassionate and more interconnected, and not to avoid staying present with people who are suffering because something has happened to them. Because we're really good at, if you look at something that's disturbing, you want to swipe it away, or you want to go to a cat video, or you want to change the channel. But when it happens to you in real life, you can't change the channel. And we need to have coping skills. We need to have skill sets. We need to have a mindset that is not going to completely, not going to cause us to completely fall apart when something happens to us or someone we know.
What about the people that are actually never had any kind of a traumatic episode happen in their lives? They were kind of born with it. I've never had anything happen in my life, but I had very high anxiety, as my dad did, and two of my daughters do, and we've never had anything that triggered that.
Well, there are a lot of different explanations for anxiety. I mean, some of it is genetic, and so if your father had it and you have it, your daughters have it. There's probably some DNA coding, and with hypnotherapy and a process called timeline, we can actually go back and find where the anxiety originated in terms of a biological ancestor, and we could do a healing for that ancestor, which would help to kind of realign the anxiety programming and would relieve some of it. It's not necessarily going to relieve all of it, but it was certainly, it will relieve some of it. And maybe there was, something that happened several generations back that was, that was difficult or traumatic or shocking or frightening to somebody, and then that anxiety molecule, there have been a lot of studies on what happens to genes when there's trauma, and genes are basically like their instructions for our DNA. And not everybody's genes, get activated or what they call expressed. But a gene for anxiety can get passed down. If, say, somebody, 5 generations ago was attacked by a bear, then that anxiety molecule, that fear for the future, that can be passed on molecularly from generation to generation, even though you don't really know where did it happen, or what was the original incident, and you might not have any contact with bears in this lifetime whatsoever. So there is a biological piece of the puzzle also.
Well, that makes sense. Can you tell us what Project Liberty is?
Project Liberty was a project that was started in New York State after September 11th, and it was a counseling program for people who had been directly or indirectly affected by the attacks on the World Trade Center. And I had a program for teenagers and young adults whose fathers were killed in the World Trade Center, and I ran that program for about 2.5 years. That was a Project Liberty program.
That is pretty incredible. That was...
And there is a YouTube video that's now on my website. If you go to laurienadel.com and you read, there's a paragraph about my work with Project Liberty, and there is a link to the YouTube video about the program that I ran for Project Liberty. You can get through the website.
That would be absolutely great.
Yeah.
My kids are kind of too young to remember it, but are now coming to, the realization that it happened, and it's something that they're, starting to look into, and actually, watching the videos of what happened that day, and it's starting to actually settle in as reality in their lifetimes.
Well, I think it imprinted everybody, certainly in the United States, and probably, in many parts of the world, that nothing like that had ever happened before or since. And it imprinted the collective psyche in a way that I don't think that we've ever really processed it, at least here in New York. I was taking a look at where it is on the website. Yeah, here it is. It's on the home page, and it's in the paragraph. It says, getting the inspirational lift you need to overcome an adverse event. And then it says there's a link to After the Fall, the rise of the 9/11 Community Center. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely something that, my daughter's 22, so she's just kind of coming into the realization of what actually happened. So I noticed that you wrote a book called Happiness Genes, Unlock the Positive Potential. That sounds very exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about, the biological imprints that can happen. I actually wrote that as a co-author with Dr. James Baird, and was able to incorporate some of the interviews that I'd done with Dr. Bruce Lipton, who is an amazing molecular biologist whose book, The Biology of Belief, has kind of revolutionized the way we think about emotions, and he's the one who really discovered that cells communicate with electromagnetic signals on the membrane of the cells. The happiness genes looks at some of the research that shows that, the field of epigenetics is the study of how the environment affects gene behavior. So, for example, heat, chemical changes, cold, changes in temperature, trauma can affect how genes behave. A chemical can cause, for example, they think that using deodorant that has aluminum in it, the changes in the body and the cells from the constant contact of aluminum may be one of the triggers for the Alzheimer's gene to release, and that may activate Alzheimer's. That's one theory. I don't know, if it's been debunked yet. But so that would be like a chemical change in the physical environment that affects the gene. But we've also found, the research also shows, that changing your mental environment, changing your inner environment through what you think, what you believe, how you work with your emotions, how you manage stress, can affect the genes that control the flow of stress hormones. And that if you, in the book Happiness Genes, I have a 30-day program that helps you to basically release limiting beliefs, to reboot those beliefs that aren't working for you, to relax, and to rejoice. I call it the 4 R's. It's release, reboot, relax, and rejoice. And it's like 5 to 10 minutes a day, and you do some kind of exercise. Sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's visualization, sometimes it's just something that just calms you down for 5 to 10 minutes. And that creates an inner environment that is supposed to optimize your genes so that it will improve the flow of stress hormones, which in turn will benefit you with more energy, more optimism, improve immune system functioning. So one of the studies that's been done, that there are 2 studies that I mentioned in Happiness Genes that I found really fascinating. One is kind of sad because they studied the brains of people who had reported sexual abuse when they were children, and they committed suicide. And they found that, and then they compared the brains of people who committed suicide who had not reported having had early childhood abuse, and they compared the brains of people who died normally or naturally within the same age frame, which was in their early 30s. And they found that the people who had early abuse, have reported early abuse, that the gene that controlled the flow of stress hormones in their brains was actually stunted. And so it was like somebody had stuck gum on a light switch, and they were constantly being flooded with stress hormones, so that by the time they reached their 30s, they were just flooded with a sense of dread all the time. And it's like the light never went off. They were always in the state of waiting for something absolutely horrendous to happen, and they couldn't stand it anymore, which is why they committed suicide. In the other 2 groups that were studied, that particular gene was not stunted, it was normal.
Is there a way to help people when they have that stunted gene?
Well, that's a work in progress. I mean, firstly, you won't know that someone has a stunted gene until they're dead because you can't study it. They study it with an autopsy. I mean, they can't go into somebody's brain and find it. But certainly, people who show up in my practice who have a history of childhood abuse, there's a lot of intensive therapy that goes into helping them to learn how to turn off the sense of dread that floods them when they get triggered, and to help them to be able to lower the kind of chemistry of anxiety so that they can feel safe, literally feel safer in their own skin. When you live with anxiety and something triggers it, and it doesn't have to be something tangible, it can just happen, and because it's an unconscious response. You don't wake up in the morning and say, "Wow, I can't wait to give myself anxiety."
Right.
I can't wait to feel like I want to jump out of my skin. But when you get hit with a flood of chemicals that are of the anxiety spectrum, your body feels like it's hot-wired, and you literally don't feel safe in your own skin. You just want to jump out of your skin. It's a horrible feeling. It's actually one of the most uncomfortable of all the psychological conditions that I've worked with. Anxiety, severe anxiety is probably one of the most uncomfortable physically to tolerate. Because with depression, you can sleep. I'm not saying depression feels good, because it doesn't. But with anxiety, you literally want to jump out of your own skin. It's like your nervous system is hot wired, and so to be able to lower those stress levels and get your nervous system calmed down is kind of the first line of defense. Psychoeducation, getting information about what anxiety is and how is it affecting you, and what can you do to kind of lower your anxiety levels so that they don't take you over the edge. That's important. There's a lot of education that goes into learning how to manage and ultimately relieve anxiety. And it can be done, but it does take time, and you do have to be willing to kind of to explore a little bit and to look at some of what is your anxiety history, what are your triggers, what do you do when you get anxious, what do you do to soothe yourself, what helps you to feel calm, what do you do to what can make it worse. And so there are lifestyle changes that are involved also. It can be done.
I definitely think that a lot of my listeners would definitely benefit from you. You're amazing, and you're very educated and very intelligent woman, and I think you could help a lot of people.
Thank you.
I have a lot of listeners that, we chat back and forth, just because I like to stay in touch with my listeners and stuff. And a lot of them battle with the depression and the anxiety to the point where they can't live an actual normal life. They get to the point where they have agoraphobia and can't leave their houses, and it is intense. I remember going through that as a child and ended up in the hospital a lot. Your first thought is, I'm going to die, and there's nobody that can help me,
Right. Yeah, that is what it feels like. The complete loss of safety, and you don't feel safe in your own skin. There's a loss of safety. There's a loss of control. There's so many pieces of the puzzle.
Can you tell our listeners, though, how they can get a hold of you to be able to schedule a session with you to maybe get them some help?
Oh, sure. And I do work by phone and Skype. And the best way is to go to my website, which is laurienadel.com. That's LaurieNadel.com. And then there's a click where link where you can email me. It's Dr. Nadel, all one word, DRN for Nancy, AD for David, EL, Dr. Nadel at laurienadel.com. And you can email me or you can call me at 212-560-2333. That's 212-560-2333. And I will personally get back to you.
I really think you will definitely get a lot of response when this
Oh,
show airs, because like I said, I have a lot of listeners who battle with that, and they battle silently because, a lot of times when somebody has high anxiety, the people around you do not understand what you're going through at all. They kind of think you're crazy and there's nothing to be anxious about, and they kind of treat you like you're crazy. And a
yeah.
lot of these people suffer in silence because they don't know how to get help.
Right. Well, it's also with anxiety. A lot of people don't understand. I have a support group for people, including myself, ironically, who lost their homes in Hurricane Sandy. And we met yesterday, and people were saying, until you have an anxiety condition, you have no idea what it's like. And very often, as people with anxiety are able to function to a certain degree, and friends and family, they may mean well, obviously, but they just don't get it. And unless you've lived with it or you know someone who's lived with it, it's probably one of the hardest things for other people to understand.
It definitely
is. You feel really isolated. You can feel really isolated with an anxiety condition. Also, because very often we tell ourselves, "Well, I shouldn't feel this way. There's no reason for me to feel this way."
I definitely can relate with that. I taught myself. I bought a book about anxiety, and I kind of taught myself to change my thinking, so that when I was having a panic attack, I would say, "Okay, how many times have you gone through this?" Many. How many times have you died? None. So I had to talk myself out of it. But I now have a 20-year-old daughter who can be driving down the road and have a full anxiety attack and have to pull over and call me, and she's shaking and in tears and she's going to die. And, so many people suffer in silence, and they don't have to. And with amazing people like you out there, I want these people to be able to come forward and contact you and know that they do not have to suffer in silence, that there is a way that they don't have to live like this anymore.
Well, there is help. As I said, it does take a few sessions, but usually, my goal, as anybody who contacts me, is to begin to feel better at the first session. I'm not. If your computer, your television stops working, you don't want to be talking about it a year later. You really don't want to, be visiting your technician or your car, once a week and talking about why it doesn't work and what does it feel like when it doesn't work. You just want it to work. And, if you consult me and you're dealing with something that's painful, I want you to leave the first session with either, a tool or a homeopathic treatment or an exercise or something, a map, or some information or something that's going to help you to feel better when you walk out of my office or when you leave the session. And that's my goal.
Well, absolutely. And, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart so much for taking your time to be with us here on info2rail. And I urge all my listeners to get a hold of you who have any problems that, they need help with, because you are amazing. And thank you for what you do and how many.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for what you do and how many people you help. It takes an amazing person with a big heart to do what you do.
Thank you. I just also wanted to mention to people that I am a founder of Mind Body Network. And when you go to mindbodynetwork.com, we are a combination of kind of like a Wikipedia of wellness, and we have a global online community of therapists, healers, doctors, all kinds of coaches for all kinds of conditions all over the world. So you can find a practitioner, in your local area. We also have a digital library of free ebooks. And we've had over 43,000 people have come and downloaded ebooks on all subjects related to wellness. And if you go to mindbodynetwork.com/Laurie-Nadel, I think you're going to be kind enough to put the link up. it will go to my page, and you'll be able to not only click on my audiobook for 6 cents, but you'll also be able to sign up for free bonus gifts, which are it's a package of ebooks and special reports that has a value of about $299 that are all yours for free just by going to mindbodynetwork/Laurie-Nadel.
I will definitely put that up there. And again, thank you so much for what you do, and thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and your show is really a gift to people, and I appreciate your time and commitment to bringing all the information out there.
Well, thank you so much, and you have a great day.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, guys, she is amazing. I hope that you guys do go on to her website and check her out. Anybody that needs help, please go on and check out Laurie Nadel. And you know what? It is amazing how wonderful, gifted people like her are out there who can actually help those of us in need of her help. So please don't hesitate. Go on and check out Laurie. And you know what? Don't suffer in silence any longer. Well, that's all we have time for. We post our shows to YouTube. And if you want to know more about our guests and upcoming shows, hey, visit our info2rail webpage. Just Google info2rail and click on our Google sites. I want to thank you, each and every one of you, very much for joining us here at info2rail. It's always a pleasure to do this show, and I hope to see you guys here each and every week. You're amazing, and thank you for your support. May God bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you in these uncertain times. We'll see you soon.